for a long time. I thought it was a good bit, and sometimes you have to let the good bits go. And toward the end of one of the last revisions, I was able to get it into the novel. John goes to Seattle, and he's just experienced his divorce, and he's thinking about maybe moving out there and trying a different life. So he meets this waitress, and she takes him back to her place, and she gives him a massage. And while he's being massaged, he's thinking about his exam with Dr. Ford.
I'll be back. I'll read. Yeah, no. I'll read. I'll come back.
Okay,
Here.
all right. Don't leave. Dr. Ford had at least 3 fingers on his right hand, which was wrapped in yellow latex, up my ass, when he started asking personal questions. What is it that you do for a living again? I sell textbooks. So you have to deal with teachers all day long. Administrators, they're even worse. I always wanted to be a teacher. It's such a noble profession. Wealthy people like you always say condescending shit like that. Wealthy? Me? You must be confusing me with some hotshot cardiologist. You make a lot more money than teachers do. If I were to do it all over again, I would teach literature. Who wrote, I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. You're not bad for a simple doctor. That's Walt Whitman. I had to memorize that poem in high school. I think I still remember the whole goddamn thing. You memorized the entire poem? I had to recite it in front of my 10th grade English class. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. It's a really long poem. I was still bent over when Dr. Ford's fingers were firmly entrenched, exploring my inner terrain, when he started reciting Robert Frost's Mending Wall. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that spends, sends frozen, ground under it, and spills, and upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps, even though 2 can pass, abreast. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. Wait a minute. I think I skipped a line or 2. It's been a while. You're mixing up 2 poems, Doctor. I think you're mistaken, John. Dr. Ford, I know a little bit about American poetry. Whitman's not American. He's English, for God's sake. He's the quintessential American poet. Are you sure William Whitman's American? Yes, he's from Brooklyn, as a matter of fact, and his name was Walt. Walt William, close enough. I must be thinking of William Carlson Williams. That's Carlos. His middle name is Carlos, and he's American too? Jeez, what a stickler. Are you this hard on those teachers you sell your textbooks to? His finger's still inside me. Good old Dr. Ford continued to butcher William Whitman's Mending Wall. I couldn't take much more. Dr. Ford, it's a great poem. Even though I don't have it all down, good fences make good neighbors. Will it be much longer? What? You don't like my recitation? Too monotone? It's been a while. No, your delivery's fine. It's just that I need to get back to work. Well, you're going to have to relax, young man. You can't go anywhere with my hand up your ass.
Richie recommended this gastroenterologist to me. I haven't visited him yet. Well, he didn't stick his fingers up my ass. He did quote Whitman. What a character. God bless him. Yeah. All right, so Richie and I spent time teaching together ourselves, and there was this story that Richie told me, and I remember about halfway through deciding whether it would be rude for me to actually close my eyes and feign snoring. I did actually do that. It was about a pencil.
Yes.
And like this has become an emblematic story for you, like a pivotal moment.
Me too.
Well, yeah, sure. The pencil story. What do you got?
The pencil story? I think I was thinking about this because you said that you told the story to your creative writing project.
Correct.
They got a big kick out of it.
Huge. Brought down the house.
We were talking about why we don't mark. We were talking about why we didn't mark our papers with red pen.
Yeah, well, it's invasive.
Yeah. So we chose these little pencils, and then I went on to talk about its eraser.
Oh my goodness.
And how well it erased, and how it was very trustworthy, never let me down, was faithful, was loyal, and I remember looking over at you like this.
the eraser smudged. It was, the graphite was terrific.
Graphite was too bad. But I remember going to teach a class, and you told me, you said that was like one of the worst stories I've ever heard. It's a complete waste of time. But when I came back from class, you had taken a pencil and you taped it above my computer.
Yeah.
And you said, that was to remind me never to be dull. And it was, just a little moment, but you and I have been talking about this for so many years, but it turned into a bigger thing because that was my approach to the novel. I just wanted to write the best possible book I could write. And I didn't want to be dull. And I was trying to create vivid characters, lively characters, funny characters, rich characters, fully dimensional characters, and give the stories as well as be, artistic. There's poetry in here and song lyrics and a ton of music and a lot of lyrics we couldn't get because of copyrights. But yeah, so it was a bigger story. Really
Tom, you got your fiction. You got some playwriting in there as well.
There's a play that I wrote in there. It was actually I'd written it back in 2004 or 2005. I was a fiend. I was really writing voraciously, and one of the plays got into the Fringe Festival. I thought it might work better as a play, so then I just dropped playwriting. I had enough of actors, I had enough of directors, and I really needed to work on my own. And I realized I wasn't such a great collaborator. You believe that? I wanted to be by myself in isolation. So one of the plays I've written around here, and it's a short play, it's one I played, is in the novel.
The novel in the title itself, for those of you from Brooklyn know it refers to Park Slope, suggests that setting and place matter greatly. You want to talk a little bit about the evolution of places that you've mentioned, Brooklyn, Staten Island, your own sort of personal relationship with them and how it has had such a significance in the book?
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever been able to write about Staten Island. I've either romanticized it or I was just utterly just through with it and tired of it. And it took a long time to write about Staten Island. I was much more in love with Brooklyn than I ever was with Staten Island. And Colleen and I bought a house in Montclair last year, and one of the things that I really miss about Brooklyn is walking. And I just miss walking outside and seeing the characters and seeing the people in my neighborhood. I would give nicknames to all the people in my neighborhood. Mug was a very unattractive woman next door. Until I got to know her, then she became Maria. Vin was up the block, and he was always trying to persuade me to become a Christian. There was Phil with the lazy eye and the Cocker Spaniel that would bite your arm off. There was Andy Cap next door, kind of looked like the character Andy Cap. And there was Ken, the laundryman. Harold, the piano player who just talked endlessly about his depression. It was very exciting to hear at 10 o'clock when you're trying to go to bed, getting a knock from Harold. All kinds of people. I miss the walks, and John, he's a big walker, and he remembers Brooklyn the way it was before it was gentrified, and before it was romanticized, and before the hipsters invaded. And the thing is, John is he's a wannabe musician, so there's a great deal of walking and thinking, and he's has a rhythm, and there are lyrics, and there are melodies, and there's a beat, and the more I thought about that, the more I kind of, not that I researched it, but I read that many writers write that way. I never thought about that. Songwriters have written songs, driving trucks, and Murakami writes while he's jogging, and so these ideas come to John. He's never able to put them into anything. He hasn't even written a haiku. He's very much in love with the idea of being a writer and the identity of being a writer. But he's seen a Brooklyn that's kind of passed him by, and he's such a relic of the past. He's really having a tough time dealing with the changes that he sees this undergoing. He remembers Dumbo before Starbucks was in West Elm. One of his favorite bridges is the Brooklyn Bridge. I love walking over the Brooklyn Bridge. I went to Pace, and I used to walk over the bridge quite a bit. And that's John's favorite bridge. Brooklyn Bridge Park, which is really different than it was in 2004. What's on the carousel now?
Path, yeah.
And the path. And John went there before all of that. And his favorite park, Prospect Park, another great park. So things are changing rapidly, and John's been unable to keep up with the changes.
You alluded to the fact that John is an aspiring musician, or at least enjoys it. You yourself run Riff Raff, the blog.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you wearing the shirts.
Yeah. I hope everybody got a shirt. What's yours?
Atlanta's bad. One of the questions that I have for you is how has music informed your life? How did it inform the novel itself? And speak to that.
Pete gave me the questions beforehand, so I was able to prepare a little bit, that's what my notes are. And I was thinking about that question, and I couldn't answer it at all until last night, and I thought about it. I've never had a dream about winning a Pulitzer Prize. I never had a dream about giving a reading, but I had dreams about replacing Clarence Clemens, on stage. Springsteen calling me down. Clarence is sick. Anybody play saxophone? Right here! Richie, come on down! I've had those dreams. I've had a dream I never wanted to wake up from. I replaced George Harrison with the Beatles, and I'm looking over and I'm like, fucking Lennon's next to me. Don't wake up! Don't wake up! Those are the dreams I've had, and it's just, I want to be a musician. I just want to.
Bon Jovi?
Bon Jovi, yeah, that's good. I mean, I know the words to Living Out a Prayer, yeah. Yeah, of course, my favorite song. No, not really. But, yeah, it's much more fun than writing a novel, You want to sit in the chair and, relive your past. It's hard. It's much better to be playing with people and looking at people, and connecting. And that's really what I wanted to do. I wasn't good enough. Not nearly as talented as Martin. But that's really where my heart is. I just love music. And the novel is filled with music and all kinds of music. I grew up on AM radio and listening for the lyrics through the hisses. You'll never find. What did he say? Another love like mine. What was that? And Barry Manilow and songs like that. The hisses. There's something really charming about that. And a lot of Motown and of course any kind of rock. And in the suburbs there's a lot of Van Halen, stuff like that. Sabbath. Even though I really wasn't into that, but my friends listened to it, so I listened to it. Classic rock. And John was in one band, if you could call it a band. It was called Bomb Lizard Gypsy. And it was just he and his friend Joey Santone, and got up and they played Rock and Roll All Night and Twist and Shout and Jumpin' Jack Flash, I think. And they became the biggest things in their school, and they had groupies. And for a while it was fun playing music, and then when I got to be about 25, 26, I realized I wasn't talented. This wasn't for me. And that was a hard pill to swallow, man. That was a hard pill. But I never had a backup plan. My backup plan was writing. I remember telling that to my dad. Right? Good luck. Yeah. And my backup plan was teaching. Excuse me. So.
Well, that serves as a pretty good transition to John was born Johnny, or Gianni.
Yeah.
Right. He's got a difficult time reconciling his roots, his Italian-American upbringing. He's a guy in the midst of a crisis, identity crisis. You want to explain why the theme of identity, as you've crafted it, is one that has obviously weighs on you?
It weighs on me, yeah. Could somebody give me some water? I'm dying over here. I feel like I'm back playing with the band. Everyone has issues with their upbringing and their roots, and being Italian American, one of the things that I really appreciate is the love of food. How we could talk about a piece of braciole for 45 minutes.
So tender.
So tender. Do you use the egg? Do you put egg in there, hard-boiled egg? How do you tie it up? What kind of string do you use? Do you use string or do you use toothpicks? Because toothpicks might be dangerous. And I love the propensity to laugh, the willingness to laugh, and the affection, the hugging and the kissing and the patting on the back. I love all that about the culture. And I also think it's underrepresented in literature. I never came across an Italian-American kid when I was growing up in literature, in books. Holden Caulfield was, not Italian-American from the suburbs. You turn on the TV and it's Tony Soprano, which is a cool character, I love him. But, we're either the Mafia, the Goon, or with Joey Tribbiani on Friends and, the lovable loser. And that's cool too, but I always had problems fitting into any of those identities. First of all, I was never big enough to be like, a hitman or anything like that. And Joey Tribbiani, I never wanted to aspire to that, and at all. And when I started college, I paced. There weren't too many Italian American kids, and the ones that were in school were dropping out. Frankie Gioia and John, I remember them, good friends of mine, and they dropped out. So John has some of those same issues, although John trivializes a lot of it, and he stereotypes a great deal of it, and he has problems with his upbringing, but he trivializes it. I don't think he appreciates some of the positive things about the culture.
At the risk of a spoiler, I mean, so no, those who haven't read it.
Some people haven't read it yet.
I want to talk a little bit about the ending and the note that you find, whether it be redemptive. Where did it go?
I thought maybe I'd read just a little bit. Is that okay?
I'm out.
All right, and then I'll answer that. I'm not going to read the ending, just the page that might answer that question. Really, thanks for buying the book, and thanks for supporting this little indie book. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate everybody coming out. And all the love my high school friends were showing me on Facebook. It's really great. Most of the folks who settled in the neighborhood, I'm sorry, this is toward the end, and John is back in Staten Island, and he's walking through his neighborhood. Most of the folks who settled in this neighborhood in the late 60s as part of white flight are either dead now or living in accessible, obvious, and unimaginative places like New Jersey, Arizona, Florida, or Colorado. I don't recognize the men who wash their automobiles, mow their lawns, and paint their houses, but I smile and wave as I pass them. I stop by my old elementary school and stand in the middle of the courtyard, amid bent basketball rims, graffiti, the scent of urine, and broken glass. When I was a kid, Alphonse Marino broke into the school on a regular basis. He vandalized the classrooms and stole whatever was valuable. Police cars periodically raced into the playground, lights flashing, sirens blaring, kids scattering into the midnight streets. Anthony DeMarco was taken away in handcuffs a few times. This was my idyllic suburban upbringing, a piece of paradise that my parents thought Brooklyn couldn't offer. In the early 80s, there were plenty of crime and drugs in New York. The suburbs were certainly not exempt. I can't blame my parents for trying to grab their slice of the American dream, but little did they know, Alphonse Marino and Anthony DeMarco were lurking on just about every corner in Staten Island. The beach hasn't changed much, though it looks as if somebody has taken a rake to the sand, which really isn't sand. It's still just dirt. Some old men are drinking Budweiser from a can while they keep an eye on their fishing lines. Joggers and power walkers appear from various park entrances, making their way up the main road to the beach, where a few older women slathered in suntan lotion sit on lounge chairs, reading tabloid magazines and worshiping the sun. A park employee is picking up debris. The lifeguard, a blonde boy in a red Speedo, probably no more than 17 years old, is hiding behind his Ray-Bans, staring off into the Atlantic. Even though it's been 100 years since medical waste was dumped offshore, another 100 years are needed before the ocean will be clean enough for swimming. This kid has the cushiest job in the world. Maybe when I'm feeling better, I'll get a job as a lifeguard. I'm intimately familiar with the chair and the ocean. I'd like to kick that pretty boy out of the chair and reclaim my throne, but he could probably beat the shit out of me. Besides, my arm is now in a cast, and I don't want to go back to the hospital. Thanks. Thank you, Peter.
What's next?
What's next? I've been working on a book about Syd Barrett from Pink Floyd. I remember Tony, you and I talking about that a long time ago. He asked me if I liked Pink Floyd. I said, you know, was never really into that drug stuff. And he said, no, not the psychedelic stuff's cool, but the Syd Barrett stuff, the pop stuff. So I'm working on that story about Syd and how he was released from the band. We were talking about this over dinner, Colleen and Mark and I, and how the band just didn't pick him up one day at a gig. And that story always stayed with me. And it's really the story through the eyes of David Gilmour, who ends up replacing Syd, who was a good friend of his. And yeah, that's what's next, Peter. Yeah, good. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for coming out. Great job. Have some good.